Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. With me, again, another live from Vegas recording. I have Dane Groeneveld, who is a podcast host too. So hopefully I'm going to get some tips for you today. He is the CEO of LEAD3R, founding partner of HUDDL3 Group, where he's shaping the future of teamwork and human capital. So we're going to find out a bit more about that, how that really shows up, and exploring how social and technological change can unlock the potential of clients and businesses. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ross. Good to be here.
What a groovy outfit!
Yeah,
I'm loving the jacket and the. So what's the shirt?
It's actually little skiers, like
Little skiers.
ski badges,
And wolves.
a few wolves. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me the story behind it. Where did you?
My mum buys all my good shirts. So I grew up in the mining industry, and then I've spent a lot of my time in the oil and gas industry. So pretty bland dress code.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got the opportunity to be working with teams and then people leaders, I was like, I'm going.
We're going for it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's it.
Do you have a favorite shirt?
No, I kind of cycle through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go through
Yeah.
phases.
I go through phases, and yeah, right now this is definitely one of the good ones.
And jackets, I had a jacket I absolutely loved. It's a lovely Ted Baker jacket.
love
It's
Ted
the
Baker.
inside, it's all really beautiful. And I went to an event, I must have left it there, and I have just gifted it to another human.
Someone's lucky.
But it was traumatic at the time.
Yeah,
But it changes how you feel, right?
it totally does. It gives you pop.
Yeah.
I like funny shoes, funny colored trousers. I think I grew up a little bit of time in England too, and I think the English eccentricity kind of brings something human forward at the right time. Yeah.
So have you always been, you said, oil and gas, were you the person who stood out in the way that you dressed, or this has now allowed you to adapt?
Well, I wasn't allowed to stand out.
Okay.
In my early career, I didn't even have a choice between brown shoes or black shoes. It
Wow.
was black shoes, black belt, white shirt.
Wow.
And then I think over time, I got to realize that dressing up, like costumes as well, just brings different edge out of people. So I've kind of always liked to bring a little bit more fun and play to teams, and I think this is an easy way to do it.
So do you use that part of your work
Yeah.
in terms of your innovation,
Big time.
workshops? So tell me some more about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I've always found like the way that we do work is very indicative of like who's on the team and the energy that you can create, sustain, and build.
Yeah.
And so my personal style is I don't like to be too planned out. I like to kind of be a little bit more impromptu, ad hoc in the moment.
Yeah.
And to just hold that curiosity for everyone to kind of get around and play with. So whether that's bringing a customer team in to a restaurant and doing sort of some questions around, well, how's the chef picking produce and menu and managing the whole experience. I find that's fascinating to learn from those environments. I love it when the team's going through a big moment of change and you're like, let's just get together and get on the whiteboard. Like, it's easy to get Excel reports and studies, but let's just get on the whiteboard and see what is just intuitively coming up from our people.
So, Dane, was there a moment in your own career when you turned left, turned right for this? What played a part in that decision making for you?
It's a good question. I think I was lucky in the middle part of my career today, so about 10, 15 years ago, to work with some great leaders who were taking on really bold tasks, like opening a business in a new country or supporting a brand new project. And we got to go in with a very blank canvas and say, well, how are we going to position who we are? How are we going to understand what the real problem is? Like, how do we not just sell the product we're known for? And so a couple of my bosses at the time were just like post-it note junkies. And that just kind of, I found it easy to engage with, and I found it fun. So I think I've just kept leaning into the fun whenever we got thrown a new challenge, whether it was within our business or with our customers. And the more I've leaned into that, I started my podcast 3 years ago. and got to meet all of these different people doing cool things in different ways. So I'm inclined to think that actually solving problems is far more about who's in the room and what energy
How do you hold that space?
how do you hold the space.
So it sounds like it was a series of accumulating events that has led to it, rather than a big trigger moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I am changing career. I'm doing these things. Sort of involved.
It's been incremental for sure. No big bang. I think the cool moment when I joined what's now the HUDDL3 group, family-owned business, and they started in 1995. So we did a 20-year reunion, or kind of look back on the business. In fact, it was 25 years. It was 2020, just before COVID. And we were like, what's the theme of our event going to be? And we picked Toy Story because it was the first CGI film in 1995.
94? Was it
95?
95, was it?
So I dressed our founder up as Woody, Ron, who must have at the time been like 78. And then I dressed up in an inflatable Buzz Lightyear outfit. And, I think that was when I really leaned in and realized that I had the license to be playful. Yeah.
Have you ever come across working with clients where they sign up for that, but then the reality when they're experiencing, there's some friction?
It's tense.
And it's tense.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that situation?
It's a good question. I think it's about increasing the tolerance level before you start the work. So I think going in and doing a little bit of a kickoff conversation, providing some materials, maybe some exercises ahead of actually getting into the day, helps people realize what they're signing up for, and then being really clear about the objective or the outcome. Because people are naturally, we've been growing up in this world where like work's a serious thing, and people naturally have this kind of conditioning that, well,
Should be hard, should be difficult, should be serious.
absolutely. So it's like, how do you show them we're still going to do real work? We're going to bring real outcomes, but we're going to unlock a different part of our collective energy.
It's what is so smart about Lego Serious Play,
Yeah.
the name,
Yeah.
right? Of having this playful approach to serious.
Absolutely.
So, what is something that you're working on at the moment that you really engage with, and you decided to give us a picture of, from that kind of theory, of what problem are you in is solving, and that is using this approach?
I've been doing some really cool work with Dr. Andre Martin. He wrote the book Wrong Fit, Right Fit.
Okay.
And he's all about restoring energy to teams. And I think energy is a big part of health in a team. So we're going in and actually putting a lot of the technology aside, and we're saying, just very simply, what is creating energy in a team and what's draining energy? And then we're playing in and around those kind of pieces of the puzzle that we find. And that can be something as simple as, doing like a napkin pitch competition with some leaders in the business around how do we do better onboarding, for example. Because a lot of people through COVID lent into technology, lent into remote work, and onboarding became more of an energy draining moment than an energy restoring moment. So once you realize the problem, it's like, well, how do we bring energy to it? And who's our real audience? Who's the real customer of onboarding?
Yep.
And I find that type of thinking gets you away from what's our current documentation, what's our current tooling, and just back to the human element.
And do you find that works for a certain type of challenge where there is energy and excitement? What about when it's something by nature, they might not have competency, might not have capability, and actually it does provide energy because it's difficult and it's hard, but it needs to be done.
Yes.
Is there a way that you can use that, or no, we do it in this place? And
It's a good point. I mean, we do a lot of work in the biotech market where there is a lot of science and regulatory rigor. And I would say we tend to do more of our work with the HR and sales functions of those businesses.
Yeah.
However, when we are working with the more scientifically minded individuals, we are still bringing them into elements of this play. We hope to do more of that.
Yeah.
I think my view is if we can equip the HR leaders, the commercial leaders, the executive teams with some of these tools, then they can bring it into their, tough work in the right way. Like you can't grab someone who's got a deadline and throw them into a 2-day offsite and hope that they're going to be relaxed and ready. No.
So many people have their go-to frameworks, go-to tools they use. I always use the where good ideas happen video to do this bit. And I always like using the 3-5-10 method for this. This is what it is. Yeah. Do you have a few favorites that are frameworks or thinking tools that you often use?
Yeah, there's a few that I always like to go to. I love to use Mural as a tool because I just love to get visual and get people interactive. And one thing that I love to do on Mural is question storming. Because the traditional brainstorm, when you're just trying to get people, saying what it is that may be on their minds, that something that we could do better or something that's causing problems, it's actually very dangerous. I find going to psychological safety, like I'm going to say something that might upset Bob or Jenny over here. And so I find rather than being precise with a brainstorm of like what's going wrong, what's going right, like what questions should we be asking ourselves as a team? And maybe you frame it, what questions should we be asking ourselves that may be slowing us down as a team? And by framing questions, you allow people to get the kind of the landscape together without starting to get into the tougher points. Yeah, and I think it just creates some flow.
I like that. Have you come across the framework? Excuse me. How might we?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very similar concept.
A way of framing questions. We've used it. I think it was developed originally at P&G.
Yeah.
Of how might we? Really powerful. How there might be a solution to it.
Yeah.
Might. There could be, and it's collaborative together. So when we're, doing question storming like that, Mural, very able to be hybrid, visual, all of those sorts of things. And then the way we frame the question, because what I've found is often questions are a goal masquerading as a question, or they're a statement masquerading as a question, or they're a solution masquerading as a question. And actually, asking good questions is a skill.
It's a total skill.
And so do you help them through that process when you're question storming of how to ask good questions, how to frame good questions, or do you just allow them the space?
Well, I think we'll coach back into the zone.
Okay.
In the live call. So we'll generally set the questions, set the tone, and then if we're starting to go off track a little bit, we'll bring it back in with some kind of guiding statement.
Overarching a outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just ask another question, because if someone's getting stuck on it, asking them a different question so that they come at it from a different...
Have you got a story where it was horribly wrong? Was there a situation where it horribly wrong? Tell me more about that. Not to bring up old trauma, but I'd love to learn from that reflection.
Another framework I like to use is this plus delta exercise, where I get a team of people together, 5 to 7 people, and we just say, what is it that Ross does really well? And we just bang it out. Ross isn't allowed to talk. And then what is it that he does that slows us down? We put those 2 columns in place. And then we start to ask questions around, well, what 1 or 2 things could Ross do that maximize on the strength or minimize on the weakness to get us to our objective? That one's blown up on me a few times in Mural because someone doesn't like what they're hearing.
Yep.
So as much as you give them the instruction, hey, we're just throwing it out there right now, we're not going to litigate, they want to litigate. Or someone says something that's truly insensitive, like, well, Henri over here is French. And it's just like, well, that's not helpful. Now we've got an HR issue in the room too, right? So I think being careful around how you frame the exercises and how you treat the misbehaviors, which are going to happen, we are human, is definitely one to watch.
I think it's interesting because it starts with truth.
Yeah.
Understanding what truth is. We have subjective truth.
Yeah.
We have provable, repeatable truths through scientific evidence and endeavor.
Yeah.
We have truth that is a moment in time in something. We have a variety of truths, right? Yeah. He's French.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what is that around that? Are we then assuming a bias that is good or bad?
Yeah.
Or a behavior that's showing up that we're associating with giving French. So do we have a HR issue, or now we're looking at language of communication and what's showing up there that is the great value and opportunity of being French? Oh, it's how passionate he is, how articulate he is with his language, if he loves diving into whatever it might be. And so I guess that's the art of facilitation.
I think it is. And if you ask the wrong follow-on questions, you could just open the can of worms. So it's like you've got to kind of know your audience, and you've got to know where your strength is in guiding them on that path.
And I guess that's the best way to learn, right? You learn out loud. And you figure out when it goes right and wrong, and that's part of adaptability.
Totally.
You know, how long? No, I need a duvet and a week, loads of ice cream to recover from that one, because that was a hand grenade, a complete clusterfuck. Or no, I'm done 5 minutes later. I'm able to move through that. And I guess that's a really good experience for teams to go through, is managing conflict, right? Managing the tough, the choppy, the difficult, the misinterpretations, the misunderstoods. Do you tend to do any work in that when that shows up, or you stay to the overarching thing, which is more about innovation or business outcomes? Or do you get involved in conflicts, in resolutions, in, hey, Bob, Sally, that's really great. Let's work on that together. Do you get it in the moment, or do you in your work?
In my experience, both. My favorite, if you can get a team to be doing some coaching ahead of time, and then you do a workshop, immersion, whatever it is, and you have one or two of the coaches in the room as coaches, I think, and you've created enough room in your agenda, I think it's great to be able to say, hey, we just saw that interaction and that misalignment. Let's create the right space to have that healthy conflict. But I found it works best if you have a coach there. I think if you as a facilitator of a day try and jump into coach mode,
it could derail.
Totally derail.
Derail pretty quickly.
And if you've got a big group and you're dealing with the conflict between these two people, and
everyone else is isolated, saying, what's going on here? Where's the band?
Totally.
So I think that's an interesting balance in the design of the day, of not belittling what's gone on. Use it, here's a learning moment, versus, okay, that's going to derail us on those things or whatever. So I think it's an interesting challenge, especially where we're dealing with these things remotely. It adds a new flavor to that, right? The engagement, the disconnect. With Mural, it gives you the opportunity to do these things remote. I know some facilitators who work and say, I will not do hybrid, where there's some people in the room, some people, at distance. I'm happy to do one or
all
other.
in or all out.
Do you do both?
Yeah, we'll do both. I prefer all in or all out.
Yeah, okay.
The interaction with the Mural tool in those examples is easy.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
But it's the vocals, it's the conversations that are happening with the in-room group that are really hard. And then depending on where your out-of-room group are, like, have they got the time and space? Like, if the builder just turned up, or the kids just got home from school, like, if we're doing really important work, particularly more playful stretch work, then you really want them to have that space. So I'd prefer that they're in a day office at a rework or something like that.
I certainly love it when it's in person, but I'd like the magic tool of the come back from the breakout rooms with one click. In terms of control, you're back in the room. To if I could have that magically in person, that'd be a beautiful mix, right?
Yeah, it would be. But I like, for that purpose, I like giving people roles. If I'm facilitating a group, it's just like, your job, you're the time clock. So you're going to be really uncomfortable with some people telling them that it's time to move on. And you're going to do it. Like, don't put that on me as the facilitator. We've all come here. This is our working agreement.
Yeah.
And then I also like to have someone who, going back to that conflict in the room, someone who owns the parking lot. And they're like, hey, Ross, Dane, sounds like you guys are getting into it. Can we put that on the parking lot and come back to it later today or in a sidebar conversation? Because it's important, but it's going to distract us from where we're going. But you give that job to someone in the room. I like that. And I find that creates a bit of not just empowerment, but like increased engagement.
I've just had an idea. I've got a workshop coming up. Yeah. And those sort of core roles of how I might do that. And I just had an idea of attaching those roles to the chair randomly.
Yeah.
Places,
That's what's up.
right, go and check it. And then when they have it, they have a choice. You can own it or delegate it.
Like it. So
they said, yeah, oh, I'm the time clock, or I'm whatever it is. I don't understand what it is. Okay, I'll own it, or no, I'm going to give it to Steve.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I'll be a bit playful with that. I'm going to give that
Do
a
that,
let you know.
And here's another add on playful.
Okay.
Not everyone loves hats or wigs or costumes, but on the day, you could even give someone like a symbol that sits in front of them on their desk, but give them some like physical artifact of their role in the room.
Yeah.
Like someone
symbol
in cowbell. Could be a symbol.
A symbol. Yeah. Ding, ding.
But it just helps keep bringing people into
Yeah.
we're here for a purpose. We're going to...
It's a collective objective, not the responsibility of the external coming in.
Correct.
To do.
Yeah.
I like that. It's fine.
It's fun.
All right. There's a question I've been asking in every episode as it comes to the end part. And it's a homage to our very first episode. We had Dr. Diane Hamilton, who is all about curiosity.
Love curiosity.
And the question is, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Yeah.
And what was it? Oh, no.
That's a really good question. Last time first. One that's actually really resonating with me lately is that I went and coached an older age group in rugby. So I've coached rugby teams before, my son's teams. But I went up, I was coaching the U18s and the U16s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was game changing. It was very different. I was very uncomfortable. I'm continuing to work through why. But it sparked some curiosity as to what was going on there. And it made me think very intentionally about, well, how am I showing up and how is this kind of resonating with me?
What does Dane need to become?
Yeah.
In that environment?
Correct. And I'm not the shouty type, but what I noticed is, particularly coaching rugby here in America, is that football coach mentality of really getting on the players. And that's not the way I've grown up coaching. So I found it very confronting.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. And what's your reflection of that as you think about it?
Yeah.
In terms of what's showing up for you when you think about it?
Really interestingly, I think one thing that's showing up, and it's something I've been working through with my son lately, is this whole sense of worth and value. So like for me, I was a good sportsman growing up. I actually moved to England at the high school age. So I was playing first 15 rugby, first 11 cricket, and that was a big part of my identity at that age group that I'm now coaching these boys at. And it almost took me back to there, like, am I fighting with these kids that I'm coaching for, like, you know,
the identity that you held in your passage to impose that sense of experience of expectation setting in others.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like for me, it was a wonderful moment, but a very like revealing moment. So yeah, I've been talking to my son a lot about that because he's 13 now, right? Okay. And what we're seeing, I think, with our youth is that they're under all of this pressure to go out and achieve, much more so than I think we grew up with. And they're attaching a lot of their own self-worth with their results, academically, musically, sports.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm already triggered both from my own experience at that age, but also from like what I'm seeing him enter into in this kind of adolescence. And it continues to be a very cool experience.
So if people want to reach out, get in touch, they've been interested about your shirt, where you got it from, or you
call mum,
or your mum, how do they get in touch?
I'm all about LinkedIn, so it'll be Dane with a kangaroo Groeneveld, so you won't miss me. And the Future of Teamwork podcast is where I get to have great conversations like this with new friends and thought leaders. So that would be the best places to go and follow it.
To go and find you.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Dane.
Likewise.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favourite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.